Each floor worse than the last. That was the strange warning written on a small piece of paper stuck beside the elevator button in the old apartment building. I thought it was just a stupid prank left by someone in the building, so I pressed the elevator button without thinking much about it. The doors opened slowly with a metallic groan, and I stepped inside. The moment the doors closed behind me, the elevator began moving, even though I had not pressed any button. At first I thought it was just a malfunction, but when the screen above the door displayed a floor number that didn't exist in the building, I realized something inside this elevator was controlling where I was going. The apartment building was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. The lobby lights flickered weakly above my head, and the air smelled like dust and rusted metal. I stood inside the elevator staring at the control panel while the lift slowly climbed upward on its own. The digital screen above the door glowed faintly as the elevator came to a sudden stop and the number 1 appeared. The doors slid open slowly with a long metallic creak, and I leaned forward slightly, unsure if I should step out or stay inside. The hallway outside looked strange immediately because the lights were dim and the walls were covered in old stains that looked almost like dark fingerprints dragged across the paint. Dozens of apartment doors stretched into the distance, and every single door was slightly open as if someone had left them that way in a hurry. A cold breeze drifted through the hallway and into the elevator while the air smelled rotten and heavy, like something had been decaying for years. I felt a sudden chill crawl up my spine, and for a moment I thought I saw something move behind one of the doors. Before I could step outside to check, the elevator doors suddenly slammed shut again with a loud metallic bang, and the lift jerked upward violently as it continued climbing. The lights inside flickered rapidly, while the cables above groaned loudly, as if they were struggling under a heavy weight. I grabbed the metal railing beside me to keep my balance, while the screen flickered again and changed to floor 2. The elevator stopped with a loud thud that echoed through the metal walls, and after a few seconds the doors opened slowly. The hallway outside looked completely different this time because bright white lights filled the corridor, and the walls looked perfectly clean and sterile like a hospital hallway. Directly in front of the elevator doors stood a hospital bed positioned as if it had been waiting for me to arrive. At first the bed remained still, but then it slowly rolled forward even though no one was pushing it. The wheels squeaked softly as it moved closer, and a white sheet covered something lying on the bed. The shape under the sheet clearly looked human, and my breathing became heavier as the bed rolled closer until it stopped just a few feet away from me. The sheet slowly lifted at the corner, as if invisible fingers were pulling it back, and a pale hand slipped out from beneath the fabric. The fingers twitched slowly like something waking up from death. Before I could react, the elevator doors slammed shut again and the lift began moving upward once more. Fear slowly replaced my confusion as my hands trembled while I pressed the emergency button on the control panel, but nothing happened and the button didn't even light up. The elevator continued rising, as if ignoring every command I tried to give it. The screen flickered again and displayed floor 3. When the doors opened this time, darkness waited outside. The hallway lights were completely off, and the elevator light barely reached a few feet into the corridor. I leaned forward slightly, trying to see deeper into the darkness, and for several seconds there was nothing but silence. Then I heard something. Soft footsteps echoing through the hallway. At first there were only a few, but then more joined them, until it sounded like dozens of people walking together somewhere in the darkness. The footsteps slowly moved closer and shadows began appearing in the distance. Tall human shapes stepped slowly into the dim light of the elevator entrance until dozens of figures were standing in the hallway. They were completely still and none of them moved or spoke, yet they were all facing directly toward me. My heart pounded loudly in my chest as I stared at them, trying to understand what I was seeing. The elevator doors slowly began closing again, and just before they shut completely, I noticed something horrifying. None of the figures had faces. Their heads were smooth and blank like mannequins. The elevator began rising again, and the metal walls vibrated softly as the lift climbed higher into the building. My hands trembled as I leaned against the cold wall, trying to calm my breathing while the screen flickered again and displayed floor 4. When the doors opened again, the hallway outside looked exactly like my apartment floor. The carpet had the same faded pattern, and the walls were painted the same dull color. Even the ceiling lights looked identical to the ones outside my apartment. At the end of the corridor stood my apartment door. Slowly, the door creaked open by itself, and a voice came from inside. "Help me." My entire body froze because the voice sounded exactly like mine. I was standing inside the elevator, yet my own voice echoed from inside the apartment again, saying, "Help me." My heart pounded violently in my chest as I stared at the open doorway. The voice repeated again, sounding desperate and weak like someone trapped inside. I took one step forward toward the hallway, but before I could leave the elevator, the doors slammed shut again and the lift began climbing once more. My breathing became fast and uneven while the screen flickered again and displayed floor 5. The doors opened slowly, and this time a staircase stood directly outside the elevator. The stairs were covered in thick dark blood that slowly dripped down each step. The smell of iron filled the air so strongly that it made me feel sick. Something moved at the top of the staircase, and a figure slowly dragged itself down the steps. Its movements were broken and unnatural, as if its bones were twisted in impossible ways. Its head hung sideways at a disturbing angle, and when the figure finally reached the bottom step, it slowly lifted its head. Its face looked exactly like mine. My stomach twisted with terror, and I stumbled backward as the elevator doors slammed shut again. The lift shot upward faster than before, and the cables above screamed loudly as if they were about to snap. The screen flickered violently and displayed floor 6. The elevator stopped again and the doors opened slowly. The hallway outside was completely empty and silent, yet something felt terribly wrong. The air suddenly grew cold and I felt a strange presence behind me. Slowly, I turned around. The faceless figure from the 3rd floor was now standing inside the elevator. Its tall body nearly touched the ceiling, and its blank face stared directly at me without moving. The creature slowly raised one long finger and pressed a button on the control panel. A number appeared that was not listed anywhere in the building. Floor 13. The elevator began rising again as the lights flickered violently before going completely dark. The lift continued climbing silently through the darkness, and I could hear breathing beside me. Slow, cold, and patient breathing that did not belong to me. After what felt like an eternity, the elevator finally stopped and the doors opened slowly with a long metallic creak. A long hallway stretched endlessly into darkness. The walls looked ancient and decayed while the air smelled like something that had been forgotten for centuries. But the most terrifying thing was the sign hanging above the elevator door. It read, "Welcome back." Behind me, the elevator doors slowly closed, and at that moment I realized something horrifying. The elevator had not taken me to another floor of the building. It had taken me somewhere far worse, somewhere people never return from. And judging by that sign, somewhere I had apparently been before. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales every week.